I'm joined today by Geoff Hampson coming to us from Las Vegas. Welcome, Geoff.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, first question is always, how did you learn bridge?
I learned bridge in 10th grade. Well, I should start sooner. My father played kitchen bridge when I was a very young child. He played with a bunch of his musician buddies. He was a musician. And they'd get together maybe once or twice a month and play at home. And I didn't play and I didn't learn, but I did sit on his lap some of the time while he was putting his hand together. And I saw the four guys, sitting there speaking in code. Never found it particularly interesting. I was there for about one hand and then I'd find something else that occupied, a 5-year-old's attention. But that sort of was the introduction that my high school biology teacher sort of attached to many years later, got a bunch of my classmates and I to learn the game all at one time. Would hand out a sheet of paper with very basic bidding instructions and how to count points. And we started to play. There was probably about 40 of us that took up the game at the same time, a couple of classes full of, quote, gifted students. And this was a good diversion for them to do things that were less destructive than just playing cards, and turned out to be a life's pursuit of passion for me. And a few of the other guys I know still play.
All right, so how did you progress from there to getting really serious about it?
Well, it was gradual. In high school, we played socially. A few of us, became decent, I would say. One of the guys said that he had discovered a club where bridge is played, which seemed remarkable. Like, people play this in clubs? And so he went with, I think, his father and played in a club game and said, everybody plays the same hands. So you don't just lose because they had all the good hands. And to a bunch of brainy, 15-year-olds, this was the coolest thing ever. So now we started creating 2 and 3 table duplicates that we would run ourselves in a house or in the cafeteria. And as I progressed through high school, in Canada, grade 13 was the final grade. And by the time we reached grade 13, we were playing in sectionals and club games and maybe once in a while in a regional. And I would say probably my best friend and bridge partner at the time was a brilliant man named Mohan Rajagopal. And Mohan was an okay bridge player and a brilliant everything else. And it turned out that the one thing that I could do better than Mohan was play bridge. Then somehow that really appealed to me. Then at some point I went and played a club game. I'm sure I had a 35% game my first time there, but eventually playing, say, a handful of times, I got a master point slip that was just this one ticket that had my name on it and had my, section overall award. And it showed that I'd gotten 0.08 master points. So I asked somebody at the club, well, what does 0.08 master points mean? And they said, well, you got to collect those points. And eventually, when you have enough of them, you'll become a life master. And I said, well, how many do you need for a life master? And they said, 300. I said, 300? It's going to take me 1,000 years. But turns out it didn't take as long as I thought.
So did you get involved in the Canadian junior program at that point?
Yeah, in high school, the club that I played at had one other junior regular, which was Fred Gittleman. He went to a high school about a couple miles from mine. And he was, I think, a year or two ahead of me. But we connected through that and we became friends or friendly at the time. He was already an established and highly skilled player when I got into bridge. So he had a sort of a community of young-ish bridge experts. But as I progressed, I sort of evolved into a player that they could play with. And some of them were still juniors when it was time to select a US or Canadian at the time junior team for the World Junior Championships in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So Fred and I were among the players that wound up on that team. And I do remember by the time this World Championship was taking place, the bridge hook was firmly set in my mouth.
Yeah. So let's talk about your partnership with Eric. How did that come about originally?
I'm a little bit older than him. I had sort of already pursued the path of the bridge pro. I hadn't really found that perfect mesh for a partnership. Most of the people that I considered at the time to be my peers were older than me and much more established. I was more of a raw young talent who hadn't really found his place in the game. And I was close friends with Eric Rodwell and Jeff Mextroth, Lindsay, and these were people that I went to for guidance and advice about, how to pursue my career as a bridge player. All three of those were extremely helpful in forming me as a player, but there was little they could do about creating a partnership with me. They all had commitments and partnerships of their own. And they probably wouldn't have chosen to play with, a 25-year-old hack. But Mextroth at some point said, the only way you're going to have someone committed to you is if you bring on somebody like you, somebody with your talent, your commitment, and your future. If you try to connect with a established professional, if the job doesn't include you, they're going to have to take the job with whomever it included. So there were some eligible candidates in the established community, but I had no certainty of getting a job with them. So Eric and I tried playing together as just sort of a dry run, playing, I think, a Spingold in, must have been New Orleans. And I'm going to say it's about between 25 and 30 years ago. And we had a deep run. We played in an all expert team with Tom Fox and Walter Schaefer. Knocked off some really good teams, including one of my current teammates, Bobby Lepin. Somehow that just really connected us, and we haven't missed a tournament since.
Did you guys play precision in that event?
No, we played 2-over-1, but we both seemed to have a aggressive philosophy. So we like to open the bidding, and we like to preempt, and we, did some tactical things that at the time were probably a little more wild than we are now, but we played basically a 2-over-1 with strong no trumps system, week 2 bids. Then over time, we added multi and then played some constructive week 2 bids. And I think after we'd been playing for several years, we might have hit sort of a lull in the partnership where things were getting plain and tired, and we didn't really know what to do next. And then I think maybe at the suggestion of maybe Mextroth or Rodwell, they had said, playing a strong club is a 4% boost per session if you were to look at it on, say, like a pairs rating system. And so we got a copy of a basic strong club system, and we auditioned it at a regional, or we were planning to audition it at a regional, where we were teaming with Bob Holman, one of my buddies and students from that time. But we felt like as we went to the tournament, like Bob's bringing us here to try and do well. Doesn't really seem fair that we try out this new system on his dime. So we played the first KO. We played our regular system, planning to do our best. We got slaughtered. We were immediately eliminated from the first match. So now we're playing a side event that has very little importance. So we said, well, why don't we try it out here? We tried it in the side event and we just romped to victory. And then we both thought, well, maybe we should just stick with this and see how it goes. And we dominated the rest of that tournament. We went to the Nationals right after that tournament, played the same system. I think that was the Phoenix Nationals, probably 15, 20 years ago. We played a pair game. We won that to start the Nationals. Then we played with Bob's team in the final Swiss, and I think we came in second in that with a very good score. And I think we might even have won all our matches on the final Sunday, but the winners did too well against the other teams for us to catch them. So I felt like a very solid audition for the club system, and we've been tinkering and tweaking it ever since, minor and major adjustments. There's always something that just doesn't feel quite right, and eventually, when we put our minds to it, we find a way to make it feel a little better.
Where do you feel like your edge comes in system-wise?
I don't know that the edge is so much system as that by and large, the two of us think about hands the same way. So there's a lot of these situations where you could approach a hand very differently. Say situations where your minor suit agreed and you are below 3-0. We have some philosophical ideas about what each of the bids will mean. And we have created language over decades that we both understand, and we sort of, most of the time, are on the same page and can figure out what our partner is trying to say or what our partner is trying to ask and land in the right spot. And I remember many years ago, Alfredo Versace, we had just played a tough match against his team, said to me, Lorenzo says that he thinks you bid really well. And I thought, well, coming from the country that has probably done as much refining in bidding as any, and one of the players that did a lot of that and certainly knows the game, That was high praise. That meant a lot.
What do you think of precision versus, a more natural approach these days, having played precision? But I know you play a lot of standard and regionals and stuff.
I do, and I've played, nationals with top players, and I've played, transfers over a club, and I've played some of the unbalanced one diamond openings. I mean, I think that there is more than one way to achieve great bidding, but I think you need to do certain things to, it within your structure to do that. And I think that a lot of guys have taken it to another level. Like, I know that Norberto Bocchi was one of the first people to say you need to play 10 to 12 no trumps. At favorable vulnerability, you need to be more aggressive, hyper aggressive even. Some other people like Brad Moss and Joe Grew have gone to a hyper aggressive, favorable vulnerability opening approach. And I think that that's tactically sound. The challenge is that there's a learning curve and there's there's a time whereby you will suffer for a period of time. And do you really want to go backwards before you go forwards? So there's always that sort of judgment about how much refining do I need to do and will I ever recoup what I lose in the short term? So there's room to keep evolving in the game. It's just a matter of is it worth the pain of the initial move?
Are there any things that you insist upon or refuse to play?
I don't like to play good, bad, 2 no trump. What are other things that I would say? I have trouble with 1430 because all of my bridge experience, I'm 0-3-1-4. So that's one of the things that I might ask them to accommodate. And usually people are pretty easy about that. The other one is a minor wood. I do not like 4 of my minor to ever be black. I like to be able to support the minor to the 4 level. So those are 3 things that I personally just try not to play.
Why 3014 rather than 1430? Is there like a theoretical basis for it?
I don't think that there's any real technical merit to one versus the other. It's just what my brain has gotten used to over the decades.
And good, bad, 2-no, what's wrong with that one?
I think it makes you bid, or it incentivizes you to bid on hands that should not be bid on. And it positions no trump some of the time from a hand that has no interest in playing no trump. So
Those are good reasons.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I know that Eric doesn't play all that much bridge other than the big events. So what do you two do as a partnership between events?
He does a remarkable job of staying sharp. I think he plays some with the robots, and that helps him to keep his brain adjusted to, bridge. He also picks up speed very quickly at the nationals, so he doesn't really take that much time to get up and running. But between nationals, we will play a social game with like Nickell and Ralph Katz probably once or twice on the weeks that we're both home. So a couple hours of social bridge, but we're playing our system, and we're, like recently we've been trying out multi, and we have a session with Joyjit, the Indian coach, coming up tomorrow night to help us really sort of dial in our multi defenses and our multi constructive and competitive bidding. So we're going to practice some of that with him tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, we also, between nationals, if something happens, like let's say that there's an area that we're both really uncomfortable with in the system, one of us will usually say, I'm going to try and alter this.
Do you use the Qbids app to practice?
We haven't recently, but we signed up and used it. And actually going into nationals, it's really good to just do, like the daily 8 hands or something like that for a week or a couple of weeks, just to really sort of get into conversation about things and start thinking the way your partnership needs to. Yeah, it's a great product.
How much does your preparation, both individually and as a partnership, ramp up before a big event like the National?
Considerably. I would say after a nationals, we would be, say, battle ready for another month without any extra preparation. But going into a nationals, we definitely need, a couple of weeks of read the notes, reread the notes, talk about things that we had talked about maybe at the last nationals, modifying and hadn't followed up on. So there's a lot of stuff that, you sort of need to double check. But, the reading and rereading of the notes before we sit down to play is the biggest part of nationals preparation.
How many pages are your system notes with Eric?
They're probably around 40, but I think part of the
Wow.
reason they're not very long is that things that are truly routine and trivial don't go into the notes.
Like, is Stamen in your notes?
So only, well, no, that's not in our notes. I mean,
Yeah.
secondary auctions that are not routine go into the notes. The goal for us is to create a document that is a good study aid for the nationals and the world championships that we play together. And that's really all that we play together. So if the document includes a 40 pages extra of things that we didn't need to study, then it's just wasting half of our time reading it. It also makes the document a lot harder to read.
And then once you're at the nationals, what does your routine look like?
I mean, I try and maintain a decent sleep schedule. We will play our bridge, and usually right after any given set, we will spend a certain amount of time discussing situations that we thought were or could have been problematic, clarifying that, we were both thinking about the same thing on the same hands. Not a ton of time during the competition, but, we'll also some of the time go to dinner together and talk about things that came up. Eric is pretty vigilant about squeezing in a workout every day. That I'm a little bit less committed to. I don't know. I like it when I can squeeze in some physical activity like, an hour and a half of paddle during a bridge tournament every other day is, for me, it's a great way to make it so that by the time it's bedtime, my body's ready to fall asleep, it's always a challenge at nationals because you've got these hands swirling around in your brain and, finding sleep and benefiting from it is a challenge.
Tell us about paddle.
It uses a tennis ball, a ball much like tennis ball, but it's probably slightly less inflated, so a little bit less bouncy. It uses paddles that have holes in them so that they're fairly thick. The game is a lot like squash in that it has back and side glass walls, but it is played with some walls, some cage, and a net, and it is basically exclusively a 2-on-2 game. And it's to me, it's a great way to sort of downshift from the amount of energy that singles tennis requires, but still is vigorous and physical beyond what you expect from pickleball.
So it's like somewhere between doubles tennis and racquetball,
Yeah,
sort of.
I'd say if you have experience with doubles tennis, or if you have experience with squash or racquetball, the game will not be mysterious to you when you take it up, and it'll be a lot of fun. I really think it is going to just overrun the country. Tennis courts are going to be replaced by paddle courts. The game is just, to me, so much more fun and social.
And you're able to find courts like in the cities where the nationals are?
Yeah, so in fact, I'm going to a regional in November. I'm going to be playing with Brad Moss, who has become one of my paddle buddies. We'll probably squeeze in some paddle action while we're visiting.
So if you can't find a paddle court, do you go to the gym or the pool or anything like that during a tournament?
For me, fitness cycles, I cycle up and down in my commitment to physical fitness. I do better when I'm in the sort of uptick of physical activity, but it's hard to maintain constant vigilance about staying fit and being active. But at the very least, I do a lot of walking. I have a 3-year-old golden retriever that gets a nice long walk every day that I'm home. And I squeeze in a lot of paddle while I'm home. At the Nationals, I may or may not go. Like sometimes I'll bring my iPad and sit on a stationary bike and do like an hour of riding just to burn some energy, burn some calories. It's also a good distraction. Like if your teammates are playing, the last thing you want to do is be watching them trick by trick, hand by hand, because now you're wasting your mental energy on things that you can't influence. So for me, it's good to go and like find a TV show that I really love to watch, put it on the elliptical or on the bike and just watch for an hour and then, go see how we've done.
Do you feel any difference in your bridge when you're more physically fit than not?
I think that there is a difference. I don't know that I've realized it like in real time, but I think, stamina is an issue at bridge. And if you increase your, say, physical fitness, your stamina probably increases. Yeah. And I think that endorphin release helps too.
Do you drink at all at a tournament or in regular life?
I drink almost not at all in regular life. I do drink socially at bridge tournaments. Yeah, I haven't noticed that as a problem as yet.
And then after a tournament, how much do you and Eric do going over results in the weeks or months right after the tournament?
During the days of our tough matches, we will do a lot of real-time discussion, like where did we go wrong on this hand? And occasionally we will hit an impasse where each of us thinks the other overstated their values in the bidding, or, like he will think that I just totally missed the boat on a hand, and I will think, well, at the decision point, you knew this, 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 this. How did you not just go? Things like that. And those discussions, when we were younger, they could become heated. Now it's more about, where did we go wrong and how do we not do that next time? And those are usually sorted in real time at the tournament. After the tournament, other hands might be discussed or areas that are worthy of tweaking. So, when the system lets us down in a particular spot, we will work on how to make that spot better.
When you come to those areas where there's no consensus, do you have an arbitrator? Do you have a mentor, someone that you guys go to and say, sort this out for us?
That would be useful, but no, we really don't. I suspect each of us will bring the hand to a third party and sort of see whether our opinions are, say, badly out of line with normal, but that's about it.
What do you think differentiates the very top players from the world-class tier right below? And I'm putting you in that top class.
Thank you. Let's see. I think one thing is, by and large, we can separate the importance of our decision from the decision itself. So, like if you're playing in the gold medal match of a world championships, a lot of people would think, holy shit, this is a gold medal match. If I get this hand wrong, blah, blah, blah. For the most part, I might think that leading into the set. But once I get to the table, I'm going to look at my hand and I'm going to think, what is the best decision I can make in this moment on this hand? And usually I have pretty good tunnel vision about simply focusing on the problem right in front of me. Also being able to get the next problem right if you got the last problem wrong. And also this is a difficult game. So you need to be able to forgive yourself. You get a hand wrong, you can beat yourself up. You can be distracted about it for the next several boards or days or months. Or you can say, yeah, I got that wrong and I'm going to get some other hands wrong, but let's not get this hand wrong.
Is that something you've had to work on over your career?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just the impulse to immediately try and recover the imps that you've lost on a previous bad decision. It's really, that is self-destructive and counterproductive. So you need to train yourself to just keep making good decisions, trust that they will bear out over time. When you make a bad decision, let it be part of the past and not part of the present.
Let's talk about that next tier of a player. I like to say that the guys you wouldn't be surprised if they're in the top 10 of the platinum pairs. You're not going to put them in the very top tier, but it wouldn't surprise you. Comparing them to a pair that if they make day 3 of the platinum pairs, you'd be like, that's a good result for them.
Yeah.
What do you think differentiates those two tiers of player?
It could simply be that there is a tangible difference in skill level, judgment. I don't think it's not usually system. So I would say judgment. When we're talking specifically about pair games, reading the table, sometimes you also get a sense of what your opponents are thinking. And if you can use that against them, if they're tempted to overbid, then maybe you push a little bit more. If they are already nervous, maybe you make a light game try double and you discover that your partner can convert it. There are situations where accommodating what you think is happening around you and trusting your instincts, that's important. One of the things in pair games that I think it's important to be able to do is try and take the bottom out of play. So if your bad boards are 40%, and your good boards are 100%, you can do a lot of winning. Making sure that when you achieve a unfavorable result, it is a common unfavorable result. I think that's key for success in these pair games.
So do you not risk a top or bottom result?
I just like to skew towards probability. So I like to keep an average result as my worst case scenario. And particularly in boredom match, you don't want to be ripping up your teammate's great result. So if let's say that you think that you're 60-40 to beat them in 3 spades and their vol, and you think you were 60-40 to make 3 hearts. Well, a lot of people would think, well, this is a clear match point doubling situation. Well, I don't think that way. I usually want more than 60% odds to beat a contract before I start doubling. Other people might disagree. I think I just don't want to discover that my teammates played a normal three spades and stole a trick to make four. I doubled the normal three spades and they made three, and now we lose instead of win.
What do you think about playing on the tablets or, Chromebooks like we do at the trials?
So, I mean, I think the trials is definitely a trendsetter as far as security and advancing ethics and honesty in bridge. I do think that there is something important and appealing lost by not sitting with your partner against your opponents at a table. I think that that might have been a solution without a problem. I never felt like, having played probably close to 30 US trials in a row, I never felt like I got cheated in a US trials. So there, I don't know that there was a real problem, but I think if the USBF and American Bridge needs to be sort of the breeding ground for the future of active and great ethics, maybe this is the solution to a global problem. I just feel like there is something social about sitting in a room with a player who's on his tablet on your opponent's team, and you're on your tablet on your team, and the two of you in lulls in the action can actually carry on a conversation, kind of hang out. So that
Yeah.
one element is kind of nice.
Yeah. I find it great. I mean, what would you think if the Spingold and Vanderbilt ended up on computers?
I would be disappointed from a aesthetic standpoint. I would feel like the probability of being cheated in those formats for at least a period of time would be much lower. But I don't know that that would be the way that I would want to progress. So I think that, for whatever reason, these programmers have figured out how to discern cheating. And I don't know that we need to make bridge not be a card game anymore.
When you and Eric sit down in a pair game, against people who are intimidated by you, how much edge do you think that gives you when they're like, because I've been in that situation before when I was a younger player, like I'm playing Geoff and Eric, like my EV on this is like 30%. So I better just go for it here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that actually that psychology is exactly what gives us that edge.
Yeah.
That if you sit down against two great players and you decide, well, I'm going to do something completely erratic because I expect them to do the best they can do, your expected 40% result has turned into a 20% result. So I don't think that that is the strategy. I mean, I never really thought about being a quote intimidating pair. I usually sit down. I don't know. I think of the career that I've found in bridge has been a real blessing to me. And I want the people that I play against, whether they win or lose, to enjoy themselves. So I try to make it an enjoyable experience, whether they have great results or terrible results. And if somebody I don't know happens to do something really good against me, I try to acknowledge it because maybe that'll have some meaning for them.
So I know that in the past, you guys like to play the pair game together just to kind of warm up. Without that dynamic now, do you feel like it's a couple days into the knockout before you're really firing on all cylinders?
Absolutely. Fortunately, most of the time you get a couple of days. I actually think that perhaps in our partnership, we're better served not to have a bye because we can play a day of relatively relaxing bridge and sort of get up and running, get into our sort of rhythm. And when they have a bye and then you play a pretty good team on the second day, you don't have a lot of leeway to sort of have a couple of, slip ups or disasters. It's becoming really hard. Like even the round of 32 in some of these KOs, you can play very good teams, even as the 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed. The world has become a very skilled place to play bridge.
What do you attribute that to, that the depth of the field and just like it feels like bridge has gotten a lot better, especially at the top over the last 20, 30 years?
Well, I think a lot of it is BBO and other online platforms have made it easier for players to become truly world class, while remote or on their own schedules. The other thing is that the world, basically the internet, has made it so that whatever people play can be learned and can be seen easily. So there is no real system advantage that's a secret. You can't really keep your secret weapon a secret anymore. Everybody sees it.
Do you read bridge books?
I loved bridge books as a younger player. I loved the bridge in the Menagerie, Victor Malo, those stories just were endlessly entertaining to me. The rueful rabbit, the hideous hog, the characters. It just made what was already for me the most fun game in the world infinitely more entertaining. And I studied bridge as well. I mean, I would read books like Adventures in Card Play to really try and get the card play to a truly next level. I would read things like Killing Defense by Kelsey. I read these various test books where you'd have like one page is a question and the other page, the flip side, is the solution.
What do you think about the guys who said they've never read a bridge book in their life?
I mean, everybody has their method of learning and the things that resonate for them. I could learn by reading. I think like Joe Rue, for example, was probably a learn by doing student.
Yeah, it just boggles my mind. I mean, there's so many positions that I've never seen at the table
Yeah.
that I've read about. And like having read about it, I at least have a chance if it comes up at the table to
Yeah,
recognize it rather than
I guess to some extent that works, but like the most esoteric of positions, you wouldn't think of away from the table, and you wouldn't think of at the table. People talk about like backwash squeeze and stuff like that. I'm sure I've never seen it. I've never executed it, and I doubt I'd recognize it if it came up. But being able to figure out that there's three spades on your right and two spades on your left, that part I can do.
so all that technical mumbo jumbo, knowing all your squeezes and all of that, that's not what makes a difference at the top level, right?
No, I mean, I think figuring out a high percentage line of play, working out how the cards lie inferentially from actions taken by your opponents or often actions not taken by your opponents. That to me, that is much more valuable. I think being alert and alive at the table, that's what it's about, being a winning player.
Are you competitive by nature?
I am, but when you get to a top level in bridge, you do a lot of losing, and you're going to want to learn how to do that without being completely heartbroken every time. So, yes, it really is horrible to lose every time you lose, but you better be able to get over it.
Are you motivated more loving to win or hating to lose?
I think hating to lose. I think I just hate to lose. So, I mean, winning, we get to do a lot of winning. So, most individual wins aren't hugely meaningful, except in that they've avoided this heartbreaking loss.
How did you make the decision to officially move to America?
I guess it was sort of a process. First, it was that I couldn't commit to doing anything else in my life other than bridge. And there wasn't any path to making a living in bridge while being a Canadian and living in Canada. So it felt like my future had to be in the US. And right about that time, I got into a relationship with an American bridge player. So I moved in with her in the US and spent the next, say, 6 or 7 years living there, established my American status and created an American partnership. And along the way, actually sort of by chance, my friend Jill Levin, then she was Jill Blanchard, said, it's possible that you're entitled to US citizenship because your father had not become a Canadian. He was an American, and he hadn't yet become a Canadian when I was born. So after jumping through a few hoops, I was able to secure a US passport right about the time that I wanted to move to the US. So that proved to be very lucky for me. And I've, had a US passport and citizenship and tax base every year since then.
So, how much do you feel American? How much do you feel Canadian down in your heart?
I'd say I still root for Canada in most endeavors, but as a bridge player, my country is America, and I root for the American teams across the board. I provide whatever help I can give, say, to the American junior teams, or, well, I'd say recently the American women's teams. I would provide feedback or guidance about things that I thought were meaningful to the various pairs that I'm friendly with there. So, I mean, I think I definitely identify as an American bridge player.
But if Canada and the US were playing like an Olympic hockey match,
I have
who
to
are you
root for
rooting for?
Canada in hockey.
My project for the year is really just about how one gets better at bridge. And me specifically, if I said, okay, I'm really going to devote myself to bridge and go all in 100%, what would you advise me to do? How would you say, I'm best off using my time?
I would say play more if possible and make sure that you don't take a break from counting everything on every hand. So at the conclusion of every hand, you need to immediately know all of the shapes and all of the cards. And you need to be able to piece together, this guy had 11 but didn't open, this guy didn't respond with like King Jack fifth of spades and out. You need to be able to put together the picture 100% of the time. And I think that you're probably there or almost there, but I don't know whether you have a complete running count of every hand, both high cards and distribution during your defenses or your playing. And if you don't, you need to.
All right. So what's the best way to work on that other than just play?
Also, make sure that do not ever play when you're going to feel motivated to not bother. So, like if you are tempted to log in and play some social bridge after dinner and a glass of wine, don't do that. That's going to be setting yourself back.
It can actually hurt to do it wrong.
Every time you exercise wrong, you make it harder to exercise right. So only do bridge the way bridge should be done, with counting, with focus and intensity.
So when you're doing cue bids with Eric, let's say, like you bring that sort of intensity to it, like are you treating it like it's the Svengold?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd say yes, except that if you don't use your practice sessions to audition experiments, then you may never bother. So you can make a calculated tactical deviation from the system just to see where it takes you. But I would say even then, what the routine bid was, and you've chosen to make the esoteric bid to see how it's taken. And there's value in that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Geoff, thank you so much. This has been an enlightening conversation, and I look forward to seeing you in San Francisco.
My pleasure. Good luck with your podcast.
Thank you.